Here we go. Wednesday, June 26th. Happy Hump Day, everybody. Welcome, Leo and myself here once again for our every other Wednesday live on building your teaching business. Leo, how's it going?
Good, good. What's happening, everyone? I don't know if we have anyone live right now watching us, but I'm very excited for our conversation today.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's dive right into it. So I think what we're talking about, we did a talk at a conference here locally in
Hmm.
in Canada, in Toronto, a few months or a few weeks ago, I guess it was
Yeah,
actually. It was nice to present with you again in person. We haven't done that in a while. And we talked about a couple of things, but our talk was about precarity in
hmm,
our industry, which we've kind of call, well, not we call, but people call the elephant in the room because a lot of people for some reason don't talk about precarity, even though
yeah.
it's rampant. It's kind of this the nature of ELT. And then we talked about some solutions that teachers can get into to, safeguard against precarity because precarity is not going to go away. Obviously one of our solutions is creating your own business, creating your own income in addition. But I think we want to start in a traditional problem solution setting here, right? So what is the problem, or what is precarity?
Well, I'm not going to define precarity because I think everyone probably knows what precarity is. But what I think the issue that we are seeing, not just in Canada, but in different parts of the world with different people, with different teachers, is that teachers have two options, right? They can either work for an institution, a private language school, whatever, and they might have what we call, stability, but it's not really stability in the sense of like having a stable job, because we will address this in a second. But they can work for a school that is paying, and I was talking to a couple of teachers in Brazil, and they say like some schools there pay 30 reais, 40 reais, 50. It's not enough money for them to make a living. And if we look at our context, if we look at Canada, Andrew, it's very much the same thing. Schools here start paying between, I don't know, 20 bucks an hour up to $30 per hour.
Mhm.
And they have work. They might be in that school for a long time. But again, there are a lot of things that could happen potentially. But then you have the other option, which is, instead of working for someone, I might work as well for myself, or work for um, a college or a university or some other
Sure.
institution
Sure.
where they're working contracts.
Yes, I think in the Canadian context, right? That's it. There are two typical streams of a teacher here, right? One you've described working for a traditional language school, let's say, for usually between $20 and $30 an hour for 20 hours a week,
Hmm.
let's say, right? So if you're at $30 an hour, 20 hours a week, that's about $1,200 a month, right? Which or a week rather, which is really, if you're living in Toronto or Vancouver, is not enough to live. But you have a stable job in that case, right? That's place where you have full-time and full-time work, and you just keep going back and you get your 2 weeks of vacation every year, and etc. The other option is what we do is you can work at colleges, universities where the pay is significantly better. Pay is
Hmm.
is I think there's an argument to be made that we get paid too much for what we do. That it's very, very good, right? But the instability and precarity exists where you have a
Yes.
contract for, depending on the school, maybe 2 months, 3 months, something like that,
Yeah.
and then it could just be over. Depending on enrollment, if there are enough students, there aren't enough students. So every kind of 2 or 3 month cycle,
Hmm.
you're unsure if you will get work, again. And that's the nature of the system in that sense. So good money, but very precarious or just uncertain,
Hmm.
contract status where there
Yeah.
isn't employment. I remember when we taught together at that university,
Hmm.
and I was trying to rent an apartment, and you have to give a letter of employment
Yes.
to the potential landlord to say, hey, I have a job, like obviously, right?
Yeah.
And when I got from the message from HR from that university, they gave me a letter saying that Andrew Woodbury has been employed at this school for the last 7 days and will continue to be employed for the next 14 days. Because if you remember, some absurd thing, they gave us contracts in 3 week
Yes. Periods.
intervals.
Yes. Yes. It
Even
was
though we were working
ridiculous.
there for an 8 month academic year,
Yeah.
each contract we had a new cover every 3 weeks. So that I can't give that to my landlord that I have a job for three
Yeah.
weeks. Like, can you? And they're like, well, no, that's how. And it's just this whole
Yeah. And
arbitrary
precarity
thing.
seems to be the norm in our profession, but it's not in just, it's not precarious jobs. or precarity is not something that is exclusive to language teaching. So I feel
No,
like for some
no.
reason we think that it's something that only happens in our industry. It happens in multiple industries. I have a friend who's a personal trainer, and he told me the same thing. He's like, he was working for a gym, but he's like, Leo, eventually I realized that if I just work for the gyms and I'm a personal trainer there, I get a cut of it, but the company gets the other cut. The gym gets the other half of it. Or
Sure,
I think it's
sure.
I think it's a 70-30 split. I'm not sure. And he had told me, he was complaining to me. He's like, "Oh, Leo, this is not good. This is not good." And I said to him the same thing I'm going to ask you now. When you are working for somebody else, if you are a teacher watching this and you work for a school, you work for an institution, let me ask you a very honest question here. Who is taking the risk?
It's cool.
The school. Who has the accountability?
It's cool.
Right. Who has the intellectual property?
It's cool.
Who has the brand?
It's cool.
It's obvious then that they're not going to pay you enough. They're not going to pay you $50 an hour, $70 an hour, $80 an hour. They're going to pay you, Andrew. They're going to pay us the bare minimum they have to get you to do their job because they're doing everything else. But we don't seem to understand that.
Well, this is how businesses work, right? This is what jobs are. You get hired to fill a role that the business has become too big to do on their own, right? And they pay or they offer people money there. They feel that's the value of the
Yeah.
role, right? Risk is a good avenue to take, I think, right?
Yeah.
Like if something goes wrong in the school, who gets sued? The teacher or the school? The school gets sued,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Who is legally responsible? The
Yeah.
school. Who like, they have all of the risk of all of the things,
All
right?
the
So
risk, all the accountability, everything. The
if
brand.
something goes bad, if there's a bad teacher, the school's brand is
It's tainted.
damaged,
Yeah, it's damaged
right?
for
So
sure.
obviously we want teachers to get, but I think grouping teachers in an umbrella, just like every industry,
Yes.
journalism, there's good journalists and there's or good writers and then not as good writers.
You know
There
what?
are good teachers and bad
Of
teachers
course,
too.
every profession has
So
that. And you know what I'm seeing is with a lot of journalists now, specifically with sports journalists, a lot of them have their own business. They have their own channel, they have their own courses because they have finally realized that, if I'm working for a broadcast like a medium, um, they're going to pay me the bare minimum they have to get me to do their job. And of course, we know this, that can be a very high bare minimum, but it's
hmm.
still not going to be true wealth because you don't have equity. You don't have your own thing, you know? So
And
I
for some people, I think that's okay. Like Andrew's saying in the chat, I mean, another Andrew here, right? Our friend Andrew McClellan saying in the chat, like some people are just risk averse, and that's
exactly.
okay.
Yeah.
Like you don't. These are just choices. Like it is what it is. Like if you are more comfortable working in a job setting where there is comfort and you show up every day, you have something to do, you do get paid, you go home,
Yeah.
that's okay. But in a precarious industry, I think it depends on what the goal is
Yeah.
and how long you think that can last. For us here, for you and me and Mike, we love what we do. The teaching jobs are great, but it's not enough for us. We
Yeah.
live in a very, very, very expensive city.
Hmm.
You have kids, you have other things going on. We all have things, everyone's life is different. So the reality is that we just have to augment. And the reality as well, and we've all experienced this working here, is sometimes the college that says to you, sorry, we don't have a contract for you right now.
Yeah. And what do you do in a situation
Come
like
back
that?
in 3 months.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's not the school I work for. I think it's the best job in the whole country. I really do. But it's just the nature of how it works.
Yeah.
And so what are the options? Like what do you if that happened to you and you're listening to this, do you have 3 months or 4 months of income savings that you're sitting on that you can then survive, or do you not?
Yeah. And even the idea of stability in a job working for an institution, I think it's also if you look at it, there's actually no stability in a job like that because you could get fired. You could get fired. More recently, we talked about this. One of the biggest ESL schools in Canada, ESC, English School of Canada, after 25 years of service, has just shut down. They ceased
Hmm.
their operations. All of the students, all of the teachers lost, the teachers mostly lost their job. And again, that's the illusion of stability, right?
I think that's an important point because really in any industry, in any job, you could have a full-time job, benefits package, nice vacations, whatever. We saw this in Silicon Valley, not Silicon, in San Francisco area last year, right, with the tech companies when the
This year
recession and
again, it
everything.
happened again.
And you can have like on paper the best job in the world, and the next day you go in, they say, "Hey, we're downsizing."
Yeah.
It can have there's no absolute safety net. Like
Yeah.
this is just the nature of having a job. And if you have a business, you have the same. You take on all the risk, but there's inherently more risk, of course. There's no safety for anything. That's going to be for the next 30 years. I do this, but especially in our industry, this is how it's run pretty much all over the world,
Hmm.
and I don't see it changing. A
Yeah.
lot of discussions on, well, we should fight for this and fight for this, and that's all good intentioned, I think, of course, but it's not going to change.
I don't think it's going to change. I think it's
So,
I think it's like you are basically trying to fight a fight that you might never win. You can complain, you can complain about instability, about precarity and this, or you can just take a different approach. You can grab this from a different handle and be like, you know what, this is not going to change anytime soon, so I'm going to do something else, which is maybe I'll start running, or maybe I'll start my own little school, my own little company, and work for myself, which is a question that we
right.
often ask teachers, because we have a community. To those of you who are watching this, we have a community called Teacherpreneur Support Network. It's free. We have free courses, free resources for teachers who want to um, get started there. So you can actually scan the QR code that is right there on the screen. But more importantly, one of the questions, every day we have lots of teachers joining the community, and we have like a few questions that we ask them before they join the community. And Andrew, we had a recent teacher who joined the community, and one of the questions that we always ask teachers before they join the community is, why is having your own teaching business a priority for you? And here's what one teacher said very recently, actually yesterday. He said, I am working for a language school that treats teachers like a line item.
I really like that line. It's
I
funny.
love that.
Now, I guess we should the caveat to this discussion is the precarity and the business model of our industry, I think is pretty consistent globally. How management teams treat and interact with their staff probably isn't. Because we've all worked at schools where the admin is amazing. They're great, supportive. They can't change how their bosses, like the owners of the school, choose to run their businesses, but they're amazing. And then there are admin teams that are less amazing, right? So treating them like a line item is a choice, right, of how the admin would run their stuff. So I think there's a difference in the team that you interact with, who your superiors are, and then versus just the general business model that the industry has across the board.
And that was a question that I'm always left wondering, is like, for some reason I think as an industry, as language teachers, have to understand that when you are working for a school, they're the ones taking all the risk. When you start working for yourself, you are in charge of the risk.
But the biggest challenge we hear from teachers, right, when we ask, well, what's your biggest challenge with, and business is kind of a big word, but like we're
Mhm.
talking about supplemental income, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Our niche is generally teachers who work for some kind of institution, school, whatever platform, and then want to augment, right? Want to
yeah,
build that safety net in,
yeah,
multiple streams of income, which is diversification, which is a good thing.
yeah.
What's the biggest challenge with that? They always say finding clients, finding clients, finding
Hmm.
clients, finding clients. And guess what problem working for a school solves for that teacher?
Yeah,
The school finds all the clients for you.
exactly.
You show up to the classroom, they're all in there,
Uh-huh.
right? So
Yeah,
they take on, how expensive it is for them to acquire clients. I mean, it depends, but it's probably expensive. They
yeah,
pay agent fees, they pay for advertising,
yeah.
they this, they pay commissions to people, the agents who
Hmm.
bring in all of those things, right? It's probably the biggest expense of an institution, I imagine, is that or a physical space if they're using a physical space. But is client acquisition is the biggest
Yeah,
cost.
yeah,
So, you know, that is the hardest part for every
yeah,
business in the world. Even Disney right now is struggling. I read an article is struggling to find like every
yeah.
company that we perceive as being successful, and obviously Disney is. they go through moments of struggle as well. So this isn't like something like started I when you hear have the first hurdle and you're starting your business as a teacher and you're struggling to find clients, that's the game of it.
Mm-hmm.
Every company in the world struggles with the same thing. How do you get
Yes.
people to give you their money
Yes.
when you don't have an infinite amount of it,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
the school solves that. They bring in all the clients. If you're listening and you want to start your own business, think about why, right? For
Yeah.
most of our clients, it's augmenting that income,
Yeah.
bringing it up to kind of match what they earn at the school, and then maybe using that to make an informed choice. Do I want to keep doing both?
Yeah.
For some people, that would be a yes. It really comes down to what your vision, your professional vision is for
Yeah.
me, right? Like
Yeah. Absolutely.
how many jobs do I want? Usually two. In our industry, we need more than one because it's precarious,
I
right?
work four. I work four jobs. So
And then it goes into lifestyle, right? So how many hours a week do you want to work? And then develop creating your side hustle, your business, whatever word you want to use, that
mhm,
fits into that. Not right away because it does take time. It's a slow build, right?
yeah.
But keeping that vision in mind. It's not about the number of clients or this. It's how do I want my life to be on a week to week basis and allowing them to seamlessly fit together.
Yeah. And there's a comment here from Andrew. I actually like this. He said, I think personality types that are attracted to being teachers are disproportionately risk averse. I don't know if I fully agree, Andrew, but I think you have a point here. I think to a certain extent, a lot of teachers
Mm.
who eventually end up in this profession, in this career, they are risk averse. But you know why? I think because they have been conditioned to be, or to being risk averse in this case. Because as you said, Andrew, when the school does all the work for you, and all you have to do is go into a classroom and teach, you don't seem to, I think a lot of teachers don't seem to understand all the risk, the accountability, the intellectual property that goes behind a business. And I think this is a very good opportunity for us teachers, for us to help teachers understand that it has come, we have reached a point in history, in our industry, where it pays well to take that risk. It's a risk worth taking, if you ask me.
What is the risk,
Exactly. What is the risk?
honestly? Like if you're founding, like if you go back 10 years, 15 years, and you're founding Uber, you're Elon Musk, and you're trying to create the Tesla battery. If you've read the book about not his book, the book about him,
Mm,
it took them, I want to say 10 years to get the battery right, millions of dollars. Like, that's the risk because you could lose all of this money
yeah.
and it could still be nothing,
Yeah.
right? So time, most valuable thing we have is time. The two most expensive things, time and money, right? So you spend one or at least spend the other one. But in starting a side hustle teaching business, like what's the only risk is psychological, like the risk that I might not work, the risk that it could
Mm,
fail, however you define that.
yeah.
But like, all right, but is it that bad? Like you're not investing a lot of money in
Yeah.
this. You can do everything for free. You're investing some time and sweat equity, yes, for sure. Um, honestly, I think the risk is in not doing it.
I
The
think
risk is in
exactly.
not doing it and then losing your job, and then what do you do?
Exactly. So I think this is why, going back to our earlier conversation about Seinfeld, this is why I think teachers have to try the opposite, right?
You have to
What
explain
is
that. We
what
weren't
is
recording. What do you?
what is the one thing that you that that I'm always doing that fails, you know? And what if I try the opposite of that? What if instead of just working for schools, sending resumes to schools and getting shorter contracts, what if I did the opposite? What if instead of doing that, I actually started, you know, figuring out what kind of offer do I want to present to my clients? What kind of problem do I want to solve them? How much do I want to charge for that? What kind of results should they
Mhm.
expect? So instead of looking at that from the school perspective, why don't you just try the opposite and try it from your perspective? And again, I think the only risk really is you might learn, for example, that the niche that you have chosen is not a profitable niche and you might have to pivot.
That's
And
it.
that's just part of it. It's
And
just
guess
part
what?
of the
That's
business.
even if you chose, like, it's going to happen anyway. Like, that's just how business, like, you're not going to select the right niche. Like, it's impossible. Like, nothing's impossible, but it's basically impossible, right? You have to learn about it. You have to iterate. And that's what any school that you work for, they did the same thing. And the biggest language institute in the city where we live in Toronto is now doing the
They're
same
pivoting.
thing.
They're
They're
pivoting.
pivoting because they're business savvy. Like they're really, really good at what they do. If you think
We
you can offer the same thing forever, it's not going to work.
It's not going to work. It's
Because
not going
not to
to
get
work.
into the weeds of this, but the Canadian government has changed some laws about visas
Regulations about
for
visas, who gets
students
to,
coming into the
yeah.
country. So it has kind of turned a lot of the industry upside down with the traditional business model that most schools have. And this school in particular, I used to work for,
Yeah.
um, they are business people. They're really good at it. And immediately now they're changing their business model to reflect the new laws that are coming into place. It's just smart.
Here's an example. I think as we are wrapping up here, Andrew, I think a good movie. I don't know if you had a chance to watch this movie. Have you seen the movie Blackberry about the company?
No.
Man, it's a great example of the
Adam Grant mentions it in the book then in Think Again by Adam Grant. He mentions it.
I read about that story, but the movie
Okay.
came out and it's fascinating because it's just an example of how a company a company that experienced incredible growth with a specific business model, but then eventually collapsed because they didn't know how to.
They didn't pivot.
They didn't pivot. They didn't, and they were offered opportunities. They had opportunities to, but they didn't want to take that risk. So I
Right.
think if you really, and I think going back to the comment about risk, I think it's something, it's a muscle. I think taking risks is very much like a muscle that you develop. You, if you've never taken risks in your life, you're never going to take risks. You have to take the first step and then eventually start taking more and more and more risks. That's
This
the
isn't
only
even a
way.
risk. Like it's not we're not you're not creating like not to talk about Elon Musk, but like SpaceX is another example. Like SpaceX took forever for they
Yes.
launched I forget how many rockets like that just blew up, like did not work. You know how expensive it is to build a
Yeah.
rocket? I have no idea. I imagine it's really expensive.
Yeah.
You know, and like the last one was the one that worked or whatever. Teaching is I mean, this is not a risk, right? Like you're probably already if you're tutoring some people on the side, you're probably already doing this.
Hmm.
And, you know, my vision for my life is similar to yours and a lot of our clients where I love teaching in a school because it's great and it's just not enough. So I need something
Yeah.
else on the side. And that's all you have to do is just find a way to find people who, you know, teachers tell I want to teach, you know, I love the school, but you know, I have to use a textbook and I don't want to do that. So, you know, problems that side hustles can solve is not just financial. So you can create your safety net and
Hmm.
earn more money so that you can travel and take vacations and maybe you don't have to work every contract that the school offers you because you can say no if you want to, right? But then you can teach
Yeah.
in a way that resonates with you. You can work with clients that resonate with you. There's a lot of other tangible benefits to this, and there's very little risk. Like I don't get it
I
when people
think,
say it's too risky. Like it doesn't
yeah,
exist. There's no
I don't
risk.
know. I think the only risk of not taking risks is the fact that you just will, nothing will change. That's the only risk. Nothing will change. Your situation won't change. You're going to be complaining about the same things.
Right.
That's the only risk that you're actually going to be dealing with. But if I mean, we can do another live on this, but I think another topic for us to actually perhaps explore in a future conversation, Andrew, is like, what are the benefits of doing this, of taking these risks? I think that would be a
Right.
really good topic
A good one.
for us to explore. If you're
Well,
watching
I
this,
can give you
tell me.
one. I mean, I
Yeah.
went to my partner and I, we went to New York for 4 days over the weekend,
Hmm.
and just you know that's the benefit because you don't need to be here. You don't need to. You can choose the days that you work or whatever.
Yeah.
Lifestyle. Well,
Yeah.
for me, it's all lifestyle. It's not about how do I make more money? How do I get more clients? How do I? It's just those are the strategy to
Yeah.
achieve something. We talk to teachers all the time. We ask them, "What's your goal for your business?" And 9 times out of 10, they say, oh, "I've never thought about it."
Yeah.
Well, you should start with that. Like, what's the purpose of this? Don't just do it to do it.
Yeah.
How much more money do you need to make for whatever reason?
Hmm.
Why is that important? What benefits would that allow you for? And then from that, you you know create, or we can help you create a strategy. But
Yeah.
strategy comes second. You have to have the vision first.
Exactly. You need to just take the risk, scan that QR code that you just showed over there,
I'll do it again
book a
here.
call with us.
That
Again,
one
there's
too.
no risk involved in booking a call with us. We're just going to learn more about you, more about your vision, about the kind of um, business that you want to build, and we're going to help you craft an offer. We'll help you along the way. Basically, you're going to have us with you the whole time.
Exactly.
We'll craft like a little diet for you with very actionable steps that you need to take, and that really is the only risk. And the first step for you, it's a very simple risk, which is basically right here. Join the community.
That's it.
That's it. Start there. Um, and I think the last thing I wanted to say, Andrew, about taking risks, because you said you talked about the risks for you. It's funny how we work in a profession where teachers are constantly telling students to take risks,
Yes.
yet we don't. It's like why are we preaching something that we don't practice?
That's a good
Oh,
point.
you need to take more risks when you're using the language. You need to take more risks when you write. You need to you need to take more risks when you're outside and engage in conversations with people. But why aren't teachers taking risks as well?
Teaching's a very comfortable profession, I think, right? When a school changes your level, most people don't like it. When they change your
Oh,
materials, people don't like it. So you're right. Just the risk aversion is kind of
have you
everywhere.
ever
I've
heard of
requested to change my
homeostasis?
level sometimes.
You know what homeostasis is, right?
Remind me.
It's basically our bodies and our brains are wired for this homeostasis. It's like basically a state of relative stability. So we like our body
Okay.
wants to know exactly what's happening when it's happening, and it makes us comfortable. And anything that deviates from that is processed in the brain as a risk. And I
Makes sense.
think to a certain extent, what you said is true. Like, I think teachers, I was never like that as a teacher. It's not part of my personality. I was always trying to experiment. You know me, like I'm always trying to experiment, trying different things. But
Mhm.
I think that with precarity, with changes in the world, I think it's either you take risks or you just complain about it. Choice
I
is
like
yours.
that.
Choice is yours, really.
I like that. Well, if you want to taking some risks with us, or mitigate those risks and start, when we say start your business, start your side hustle, or just really get that vision for why you want to do it, because it is hard. And we always say, like, if you don't really know why you want to do it, it just makes it that much more difficult. So learningenglish.com to check out the website, or scan that QR code to join the community. There's free resources for you there, especially on mindset and things like that, to help you get over that hump. And then, of course, book a call with us in the top left if you want to just share that vision, or work through it with us for free. And then we can see if working together makes sense to help you on that journey to create this, over time. Again, starting a business or getting an offer up is not like a light switch that happens in a moment, but to build those foundations, get them in place so that you can build that safety net in, just
Hmm.
this is not an opinion, just it's a precarious industry, right? Like, this is
Yeah.
a fact. It is the way it is. I think it's a reason why we like it. I kind of like it because it allows for lifestyle flexibility. You can travel, you can do other things, but there's definitely cons to it
Yeah.
as well. And if you're wanting to build up a side hustle that gives you a bit more flexibility, talk to us and we can see if we can help.
All right. Take care, everyone.